Hey guys, Drifter here. I've been playing more Marvel Rivals than any other game these days. It's soaked up the majority of the time that I was previously spending on Call of Duty or Teamfight Tactics, and it occupies a pretty big area of the tiny home that is my brain, and I've been thinking about different team comps and strategies pretty much all the time, even while drifting off to sleep. But there's one in particular that I keep coming back to, which is the Rocket and Groot team-up ability where Rocket can ride on Groot's back and get a 35% damage reduction. To get a good mental idea of how much effective health that is, you have to take the inverse of the reduction, and it maths out to being about 55% more health, which means that Rocket Raccoon would technically have a 500 plus health pool depending on the situation, and that doesn't even count in shields. So I thought to myself, what could a 500 health healer do? Is it possible for me to ride Groot all the way to victory and just be an unkillable hero? Or am I going to get dumpstered by anyone with a brain? So today we're going to talk about the theory of how this could work, the reality of what actually happened, and then some final opinions on the end. So the theory behind this is just giving Rocket Raccoon 500 effective health, not including shields. Rocket would also, while riding on Groot's back, be in people's faces and be able to barrel stuff them with his primary weapon. And as a side note here, Rocket Raccoon's primary weapon has a surprisingly high DPS, especially if you're up close, and especially if you're not missing much and getting headshots. I think its base damage is 16 without the headshot multipliers. So what Groot gets out of this arrangement is Groot gets a dedicated healer that rides on his shoulder that has a lot more effective health, so Rocket Raccoon can actually tank a little bit, and Groot in theory gets a big DPS burst since he basically has a sentry turret on his shoulder. Groot can also get very powerful vertical rocket jump boots from Rocket's BRB. The fourth shield pack it throws out is not a shield pack. It's like rocket boots that just send you flying into the air. And Groot and Rocket ideally can combo their ults pretty easily. As soon as Groot throws down the stun, I can throw down my damage boost. We can clean people out. And I assumed in this theory that there would be a need for some additional healing since it's hard to directly heal with Rocket Raccoon. And I also assumed that there would be times that I would die or I would need to hop off for safety. And I know that Rocket Raccoon has a surprisingly high amount of mobility in his kit, so it didn't seem that hard to do. Given all of these facts, I was hoping that we could just load in and just steamroll people wherever we wanted to go on the map. Wherever Rocket and Groot went, there would just be too much DPS between the walls and the machine guns and the dedicated healing. I thought it was really doable. So I teamed up with Pandalol, who happens to be a Groot main and the editor of this video. I teamed up with J-Hub and Hero Garrick to test all of this out. So let's move into the reality of what happened here. I'm going to tell the story mostly from Rocket's perspective, then a bit of Groot, and then we have a different section that I don't want to spoil for you. So, from the perspective of Rocket Raccoon, which was me riding Groot's shoulder, I found it extremely hard to deal damage or heal anybody. This setup is very similar to the weird character in Heroes of the Storm. I think it's like a giant with two heads, and you have to have two people playing this character so that one character controls the movement and I believe the other one does spells. And in theory, that character is really powerful. In practice, however, almost nobody can coordinate well enough to take advantage of the entire kit. And a similar thing happens here with Rocket Raccoon riding Groot. Groot as a tank is going to have to constantly strafe and position and micro position and move around, and that caused me to not be able to control or predict very well in the chaos of a fight how I needed to aim. So normally when you're aiming, you have some degree of right hand tracking, and your left hand, assuming you didn't swap the two, has a left-right strafe. Almost every game has this little dance where you strafe left and right. That's very, very normal. And that's what I would have been doing if I were using the keyboard, but what I am doing is riding Groot. And I don't know what Panda's thinking. He can't call out all the left-right strafes or whatever. I don't know how to compensate. So my aim was all over the place. It reminded me of being 13 again and being a gunner in the Warthog in Halo when my friend was drunk and driving around and I just couldn't hit any elites because the thing was just all over the place. My accuracy was pretty bad at most ranges, and this was magnified by the fact that Rocket Raccoon technically shoots projectiles that have travel time and also spray out of the end of the barrel at slightly odd angles. So I had to lead my shots, compensate for inaccuracy, and I couldn't control the strafing, which is an absolute mess. I pretty much hit nothing until people got up close, but it wasn't bad up close though. There were several instances where we either dove people or had people dive us thinking they could kill me easily since I wasn't going to move, only to get trapped by Groot walls, which deal damage, and get shot in the face a bunch of times with my Gatling gun. So some people absolutely did get blown up just as quickly as I wanted, mostly tanks, but it still worked really well. But the majority of the time, I just wasn't able to aim well enough to deal meaningful damage. And before we move on to the next part of the video, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Mixline by Logitech G. This is a completely free audio mixing software that helped me make this video. I love it so much, I actually consulted for it. And when you install the program, the video that tells you how to set it up will be me going through everything. But I absolutely love Mixline. It's 100% free, costs $0, no premium version, no nothing, and it is a masterpiece of a digital audio mixing program. And again, I used it to make this very video. Links down there below, and it's free. Which leads me to the next problem. Probably the even bigger problem, which is that I can't heal while riding Groot, or I can't do it very effectively at least. Rocket's healing orbs are designed to pass through a team fight from a long distance and heal people along the way. The downside is that when you're riding on Groot, you can't do anything else but shoot the orbs away from Groot because he is the center of where you're standing. There's really no direction you can shoot the orb that isn't away from the person you're trying to heal. Now, thankfully, Rocket Raccoon's orbs will slow down and they're slightly sort of sticky for teammates. So I can shoot and Groot can walk forward. And, you know, if I shoot, it does get some healing. So it doesn't do nothing when I shoot. It just doesn't give as much healing as a full pass through. In order to heal teammates or anybody else, I kind of have to turn around and look backwards and shoot backwards, which is more than a little bit awkward. And the best way that I found to heal Groot, at least most consistent way, is to look straight down at the floor and shoot so that it travels down a meter or two, hits the floor, and then up a meter or two before going out to more or less maximize the amount of space that the stickiness of the orb can stick to and heal. And even that wasn't very effective, to be honest. I also tried quite a lot to shoot the orbs in front of Groot so that they would hit the wall, bounce back, pass over both of us and then teammates behind us. But that was extremely difficult to do on any map that didn't just have the geometry of flat walls. I mean, that's just, I'm like trying to calculate all these angles in my head while I'm riding on the man's back, and it was really complicated. Also, shooting forward and waiting for it to come back means that there is a significant delay in healing, and this is a game where you can die in a split second, so having to wait 5 seconds for healing, very bad idea. And this strategy ultimately made me an underperforming healer that also wasn't dealing a lot of damage. From the perspective of Groot, I don't think Groot really got anything out of this. Maybe just a little bit of increased DPS for when enemies or enemy tanks get in too close. You know, we could catch some people not paying attention and burst them down. But I feel like it was ultimately a burden not only to Groot, but to the rest of the team while I was trying this only riding on Groot's back thing. However, it wasn't all downsides. It wasn't all bad. There was actually some useful tips in here that I'm going to try to hand out, and hopefully somebody can take advantage of these. So first of all, I do think that giving Groot the rocket boots is a really good idea for that particular team up. All he has to do is hit shift on PC, jumps like 40 meters in the air. It's an insanely high boost. And I think that Groot is a really cool character that can do a lot of interesting things, especially so many clever things with those walls and how they deal damage, how you trap enemies and your little grenade you throw. But he's very, very slow, to the point where Groot might as well have negative mobility. And this rocket boot thing that he can pick up gives Groot one ace up his sleeve that most people wouldn't expect that he can use to get out of a bad situation. He could just jump up and get healed. He could jump up and, you know, jump through an orb and get healed, just jump out of trouble, jump to dodge an ultimate. There's a lot of different things you can do. And I also noticed that Groot, from the perspective of Rocket, Groot has a surprisingly long jump onto back range, is what I will call it. The tooltip will pop up telling you can jump on his back at a huge distance. I haven't played Marvel Rivals enough to get a good mental heuristic for like visual distances, but I'm going to estimate here that the jumping range has to be 15 to 20 meters. Minimum of 10 meters. There's no way that it's less than 10. And the point of it is that the distance at which he can automatically jump to Groot's back might just surprise you. This ability seems to have no cooldown as well. You can hop on and off as much as you want. And I found this very interesting because Rocket already has a pretty loaded kit for mobility. If you're playing Rocket Raccoon, he's got the two rocket boosts that push you through the air. He's got the ability to run on walls, both vertically and sideways, and all sorts of crazy stuff. And he can hold spacebar to hover, which is a lot of interesting mobility. But this one thing adds an additional option to your chain of mobility. If my base mobility wasn't good enough for me to reposition or go where I wanted to go, I knew that I could use the free jump to get another 15 or 20 meters and jump to Groot, and then jump off of Groot to wherever I was going. I was treating at some point in the game, I was basically treating Groot like a bounce pad in Sonic. I knew that my 2 rocket boosts and wall run weren't enough to get to wherever I wanted to go, but if I did like a rocket boost, jump to Groot, another rocket boost, and then a wall run and a hover, I can get there. You just chain them all together. So I think that that little bit of extra mobility in Rocket Raccoon's kit could be extremely useful for a higher elo player that wanted to do some interesting positioning or movement tech. I did also have pretty good results with Rocket Raccoon's effective tankiness. Even, you know, when I was starting to give up on the permanent riding Groot around strategy, I did often find it to be a good idea to jump onto his back when I was in extremely low health, because it would effectively give me 50% more health of whatever little pool that I had left. So in a dangerous situation where I'm dying and things are looking bad, it can literally be a safe space to go jump on Groot's back and enjoy some of that little bit of health bonus. Overall, though, this strategy really didn't work out. I had much better results just playing normally with Star-Lord. For whatever reason in Marvel Rivals, Star-Lord just makes the most sense to me. I think I just like characters that go really, really fast, and I think I especially enjoy Star-Lord's very high impact ult. It makes me feel like I have a lot of control over the game, and I can pop it with or without my teammates, which is nice. It's also ironic that one of the inspirations for this idea was to try to save me button presses on a weak finger. As many of you have probably seen the gun range videos recently, I sprained some fingers. Did I sprain them shooting a gun? No, I sprained them doing maintenance. I just put in too much force and strained a finger a little bit. So I had this goofy idea of maybe I could ride around Groot and just save my left hand and not have to get, you know, do any extra button presses or whatever. And as it turns out, I'm much happier in Marvel Rivals just being in pain from using my left hand like crazy and playing Star-Lord, because it's just so much more fun. It appeals to me so much more. It works for me so much more. I'm probably not going to be doing as many more of these experimental strategies and just focusing on murdering people with Star-Lord in the near future. So guys, it's a little mini in-depth here almost, but that's kind of how my brain works. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.